our tears. We know that those who are privileged seldom notice systemic injustice and the violence that accompanies it. But if we sow injustice and violence in our legal structures and cultural norms, we must not be surprised when we reap public outcries and actions of rage. When violence arises alongside peaceful protests, we must recall Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s assertion that a riot is the language of the unheard. This tension between peace and violence burdens our hearts. For we are people who yearn for justice and for peace for all. Yet racism itself is a violence against human beings and a sin against God, who created every human being in God's image. Sholom And like all sin, racism will not easily give up its hold on our national consciousness and requires heartfelt repentance and true change. As the Bethlehem Interfaith Group, we refuse to give up our sacred values of justice and freedom for all, and will never relinquish our belief that the bonds of affection between and among us can be repaired and replenished. Bound by our trust in a God of steadfast faithfulness and unending compassion to all humanity, we share God's vision of human flourishing, which dwells beyond the boundaries of human hearts and cultural claims. This vision calls us to seek the well-being of all who are still enslaved by the failures of our nation. We know that justice delayed, as Dr. King said, is justice denied. For 400 years, every generation has failed our African American siblings. And during this time of civil unrest, we must reflect and understand that to achieve positive change and an end to racism, we must act. Let us, in faith, become the generation that finds a way to transform the nightmare of racism into the dream of God. And I'd like to just now read, if I may, all of the pastors, imams, and rabbis to acknowledge them and to give them acknowledgement in this statement. The Reverend J.C. Austin of the First Presbyterian Church of Bethlehem. Reverend Beth Gowdy of the Metropolitan Community Church of Lehigh Valley. Reverend David Brown, Holy Cross Evangelical Lutheran Church. Reverend Dr. Pamela Payne, the Trinity Episcopal Church of Bethlehem. Reverend Melissa Johnson, Advent Moravian Church. Myself, Rabbi Alan Judah, also from Congregation Brith Sholom. Muhammad Saeed Salmanlar from the Lehigh Dialogue Center. Reverend Dr. Stephen A. Simmons, Presbyterian Church USA, honorably retired. Reverend Cynthia Simmons, Presbyterian Church USA, honorably retired. Sister Bonnie Klein-Schuster, School Sisters of St. Francis, Bethlehem. Sister Virginal Makos, School Sisters of St. Francis, Bethlehem. Reverend Jenica Borger, Moravian College. Reverend Dr. Deborah Appler, Moravian Seminary. Right Reverend Hopeton Clennon, Central Moravian Church. Reverend Anthony Mangello, St. Anne's Catholic Church, Bethlehem. Reverend Giuseppe Esposito, St. Anne's Catholic Church of Bethlehem. Reverend Nina Patton Semerad, Epworth United Methodist Church. Imam Beitullah Kolek, Respect Graduate School. Reverend Candy Labar, Wesley United Methodist Church. Reverend Jennifer Nichols, Presbyterian Church USA. Rick Dow, Lehigh Valley Friends Meeting Quakers. Reverend Madeline Campbell, Unitarian Universalist Church of Lehigh Valley. Reverend Canon Dale Granfield, Cathedral Church of the Nativity. And Reverend Dan Miller, Edgeboro Moravian Church. And if you are a pastor or a minister, a rabbi or an imam or any other faith in Bethlehem that wants to put your name to this and to join us in uniting and ending racism and working to build this community of faith together, we welcome you. Let us do it together.
Okay, I've called my vice president up here. She's scared. She thinks I'm going to put her at risk. Anybody that talks to me off the side is at risk. Because you never know what I'm going to ask you to do. But as the Bible always says, be prepared. But I want to thank Thomasine Nickens, who is the first vice president for Bethlehem NACP. And when I'm at my phone, if I want something done, she's my legs. And when I go around the city, if we have a meeting, she is the one I ask to accompany me. She's been doing that for years. I used to ask her to drive me, but her eyes are bad. I could kill myself. So we've given that one up. But I want to thank my dear, she's my niece, and I want to thank her. I'm not getting ready to die. And I want to recognize Steve Samuelson, Representative Samuelson. He's a representative, and he's like my niece Thomasine. If I need something, I just get on the phone and call him up. And he responds. And as a representative for 135, I think he does a job well done for us. We want to make sure Steve gets in again.
Yes.
Grace Cramsey-Smith, I've talked to her this afternoon. City Council here in Bethlehem. Where are you, Grace? Why are you in the corner, Grace? Hey, Grace, teachers aren't in corners. But she takes care of our children. And we are going to be working, Dr. Roy in Bethlehem, I work closely with him. And I want to acknowledge him. I don't know who's here representing the district. I didn't ask him to come. It's the conscience of man that tends to lead us. But I'll tell you, going forward, education is very important, because those little black boys that go into school and they all look alike and they're challenged, we want to depend on these teachers that are receiving them, and they talk about trauma. We're going to see what we can do to get that released. But we thank God for all these people. And I also want to recognize, she's hiding over here in the corner, Robin Stanley, Patilla Stanley. She's a retired lieutenant from Northampton County. There are some of us that have been in strategic places, and there's not much we can do alone. And so we're going to make some changes, and I want you to know that going forward, we're going to see what we can do to clean up things. And so what we're going to do to end this vigil this afternoon, as we stand in solidarity with our brothers and sisters throughout the country, we are going to sing a verse of We Shall Overcome, and we are going to stand quietly for 8 minutes, 46 seconds. The brother is going to keep time. I'm going to ask those police